Washington Commanders 20, New England Patriots 17. Commanders move to 4-5, which puts you square dead smack in the middle of the NFC playoff push at 4-5. For Washington, Patriots fall to 2-7. Washington got up early, 10-0. Brian Robinson fumble kind of got New England back into the game. New England scored the next 17 points. They're up 17-10, but Sam Howell with a dot to Jahan Dotson for a 33-yarder, and then they go up for good with a field goal late in the third quarter. Neither team scores in the fourth, and Washington holds off New England's comeback attempt with a Mac Jones interception. Juju Smith-Schuster with a drop on that last play, and the Commanders move to 4-5 here.
Yeah, fun game, actually.
It was.
Given that neither of the teams are particularly good and the various things you've described. Washington, having traded away both their edge rushers, no longer have an edge rush presence, which is unfortunate for them. But these are the risks you take when you trade away both your starting defensive ends. They also did get screwed by one of the worst roughing the passer calls I've ever seen in my life. It would have been a bad call had the ball been thrown. But when you consider that the ball was still in Mac Jones' hands at the time and is therefore known as a sack, colloquially, the fact that they threw a flag on that and said it's roughing the passer is genuinely mind-blowing. But this is the NFL world we live in at the moment.
Anti talk about the refs guy over here, but I got a lot to say here today. That was horrendous.
Yeah.
That was so bad. KJ Henry literally just tackled Mac Jones.
Yes.
So the only thing that happened is it happened to be on the blind side.
Yes.
He couldn't see it. But this wasn't even your weight fell on him.
No.
Like, I get the weight thing
That's
now,
what I'm saying.
Right? We have been conditioned to don't Siragusa the sack, right? Don't belly flop on the sack.
But, like, if the ball had been gone, it still would have been a ridiculously harsh roughing the passer call because he didn't drive him down in the turf. He didn't fall on him with all this weight. He, was sort of easing off, etc.
Again, the frustration with these calls, Sam, this one and then the Josh Allen intentional grounding, is you throw all the officials in a room, right? Forget Terry I don't know what Terry was saying on the broadcast last night, and whoever, this is what he was looking at, and you kind of see what they were seeing, and you try to defend the refs on the field or whatever you're doing. You throw all the refs in a room and you say, KJ Henry has just sacked Mac Jones. Let's watch this play. Show me, what do you guys see? And they all say, nothing.
Yeah.
And then in one game, randomly, they call it a roughing the passer. It's horrendous, that part of it. And I know they're doing a lot more, talk to New York or talk to Sky Judge Guy or whoever it is and just kind of get some things right.
Yeah.
You have time. If you threw the flag for that, somebody can get in your ear and be like, no, man, you missed it. It's okay, just pick up the flag. They do this all the time. There's no flag for roughing the passer. And they say what the no flag is for.
Yeah.
They say for roughing the passer, meaning someone thought there was roughing the passer at one point. Mm-hmm. And you know what? People love you getting it right. They love when you get it right. Somebody called this roughing the passer. Well, we just called down and said it wasn't. There's no flag for roughing the passer. Great. It's way worse when everybody's tweeting it out and talking about hey, look at this. They called this roughing, you idiots. That's way worse than picking up a flag that is bad. Pick up the flag. That's all.
Yeah. This was one of the worst roughing the passer calls I've ever seen in my life. There have been worse roughing the passer calls relative to the fact that the ball was gone. When the ball is thrown away.
You got the late push.
Yeah, and so there have been weaker roughing the passer calls, but when you consider he had the ball, he was sacking the quarterback. This is one of the worst roughing the passer calls I've ever seen.
The weak roughing the passer calls are the weak late hit. It's like a timing thing.
Yeah.
There's the graze of the face mask.
Yeah.
Which probably happens a few times per game, and then again you just kind of pick or choose when it's in there. The graze of the face mask. Grady Jarrett throwing Brady to the ground last year, which wasn't even that was a tackle, right? Because again, QBs get thrown to the ground all the time, so you can't just pick and choose when you're going to call it. But this really might be the worst. I honestly don't. This could be the worst roughing call I've ever seen and the worst intentional grounding I've ever seen, all within 4 hours of each other. Pretty impressive.
There's been a lot of bad intentional calls. Anyway, maybe we'll get to that. But point being, they had a sack taken away from them with an egregious call, but that was basically their only pressure of the day. Effectively, they weren't. They didn't have that edge rush presence that they had when they had two much better edge rushers. So that was an issue.
Do you want to talk the Sam Howell experience?
Dude, Sam Howell is just amazing to watch.
I'll let you go in a second here, but there was a point in the game yesterday where I tweeted, and so he hits Jahan Dotson with that deep touchdown, right? Mm-hmm. There was a point in the slate of games yesterday where Sam Howell had maybe the best throw of the day, which was to Dotson for a touchdown, the best scramble of the day, which was 3rd and 23, and you could say it was bad tackling by New England, but he converted a 3rd and 23, running through dudes. And also, so best pass, best scramble, and worst interception right before the half, and throws it right to the defense in the end zone.
And most insane completion I've ever seen. He had like a full – remember when the other day when Brock Purdy had two like Brett Favre-esque crazy roll to the right, blindly heave it back into the middle of the field things. And you're like, those were like 09 NFC Championship game Brett Favre game-losing plays. He had two of them and somehow completed the ball on both attempts. Sam Howell had one in this game that was what Brock Purdy did on steroids. It was like blitzer coming right up the middle, right through the A-gap. He rolls to the right, and then not even off his back foot doesn't do justice for what this was. In the air, running away from a guy, he turns his body full 180 degrees and lofts one back towards the other side of the field. Like the dictionary definition of suicidal insanity from a quarterback. And somehow, not only was it complete, but whoever caught the ball only took it away from another diving Washington player. Somehow, multiple receivers had a shot at this, and there wasn't a New England defensive back within 10 yards of it. It was just one of the most crazy completions I've ever seen, let alone, this year or in a Sam Howell game.
Yeah, he's awesome, man. That's Josh Allen light type of stuff. So before the game, Ron Rivera said something to the effect of, "Hey, we may have found our franchise quarterback." And I'm always, what is the franchise quarterback, right? Are you finding a guy that you feel pretty good about as your starter? Is it just a starting caliber guy? If you're ranking quarterbacks in your head, is it top 10, top 15, top 20? I feel like a lot of teams, you hit the top 20 and it's like, oh, we got a starter. Got a guy we could build around. There's also some of our friends, or maybe football media people who are like, that's a little crazy. Takes too many sacks. And if you only look at Sam Howell through the lens of the sacks, which we would all agree, his egregious sack totals this year are far more on him than anything else. But I think he could still be their guy, despite that. Despite this really big flaw, the fact that he's had some horrendous games this year. It's his first year as a starter. There'll be some ups and downs. But has he shown enough that he should be the guy for Washington? I think to this point, at least on the rookie contract, I think you could say, hey, let's build a team around him for a couple of years and see. And knowing that I'm always having an eye toward like cheating on this guy, right? I'm always going to look for other people. But for now, like rookie contract Sam Howell, I don't think is an egregious team building decision.
He
only has 2 more years under his contract.
Yeah, so he's in a really interesting situation because his future is probably tied quite closely to Ron Rivera, who is one of these guys being talked about as, is he still going to be there next year? Because new ownership, you trade away both your starting defensive ends. Are they going to have a general manager opening at the end of the season? Like, are we going to completely overhaul this thing, or is this going to be more of a long-term transition? Like what the Ron Rivera, saying we found our guy in Sam Howell. I mean, Rivera has been pretty steadfastly from day one talking up Sam Howell. Like remember in the offseason when it was first being mooted that Sam Howell was this team's quarterback this year, everybody thought he was crazy or lying, right? That, he might be saying that, but there's no way they're actually going to do that, roll into the season with Sam Howell as a starter. The reports were when they were interviewing offensive coordinators, they were saying, just so you know, this is your starting quarterback. Now let's proceed with the interview. And again, nobody really believed it until the moment I was sold was when they signed Jacoby Brissett, right? Which was like, okay, that's actually the move you make if you think Sam Howell is going to be your starter. Like he's a pretty good insurance policy, but you're not giving Jacoby the starting job unless Sam Howell simply cannot do it. So from pretty early, he's been saying this is the guy. He is fairly well tied to Sam Howell. But if Ron Rivera isn't there and the ownership doesn't believe in him or the new general manager doesn't believe in him, if there's going to be one, then he probably, I don't know if he starts. But I would argue that he has shown at least as much, if not more, than Justin Fields had last year at the point where the Bears were like, all right, let's try and build around Justin Fields now as opposed to, stripping the roster around him. And you have that benefit of, well, if you do want to commit to him, at least for the next couple of years, he's on no money because he's got the 5th round rookie contract as opposed to the number, whatever, a top draft pick contract. So, and the other thing is, I think you're right to bring up the point of he's still a crazy young, inexperienced starter. So yes, the sack thing is a fairly crippling flaw in his game at the moment. It's also a flaw that's been there throughout his entire career. Like you go back to college and people were drawing circles around Sam Howell on graphs saying this is a problem. This is an unusual trait as a quarterback and not a good one. This is a potential red flag. And you can argue that's why he slid all the way to the 5th round. But number one, it is something you can probably work on. And frankly, it feels like an easier thing to try and fix than, hey, you just can't play, right? Like you can't read, you can't make plays, you're not instinctive, you don't know where to put the ball. Like those are all things I'm not sure I can do anything with. Just simply trying to work a little bit on when to get the hell rid of the football feels like a slightly smaller problem. The other thing is, it's very early, but there's been signs that he's getting a little bit better at it. The Patriots would be the type of defense where you'd say, all right, Sam Howell's going to get sacked 8 times because New England are going to throw all kinds of weird stuff at him. He's not going to know what the hell's happening. And instead, you get plays like that craziest completion I've ever seen where he gets out of it and gets rid of the ball. Okay, it's a weird way of doing it, but he doesn't take a sack, right? And those were plays that typically he would have taken a sack. And you look at Washington's offensive line, I don't think we've charged it with a sack, so the sacks that happened were either on Sam Howell or a combination, an unblocked breakdown, whatever. But it was only 3, not 9.
On 53 dropbacks.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? Sam Howell has dropped back 48 times more than any other quarterback this year. So he has actually been thrown into the fire with a team that's like, we're going pass first, whether you're ready or not. And there's some game flow things and the whole deal. But
those will only
if you're
increase
ready or not.
Yeah.
Big time throw rate is one of the best in the league, if not the best. He's behind a couple quarterbacks, but he's over 6%. I don't know. We could talk for a while about Sam Howell. But there's an intriguing skill set there because I believe the football analytics community is the new hot thing is like, let's just talk about sack avoidance, right? Which is an important thing in a pretty sticky stat year over year. But you always talk about continuums and sliders and all that stuff. If you're taking a ton of sacks and you're Joe Burrow, it's okay, right? And Joe Burrow's grown out of that a little bit. I'm not saying Howell's at that point, but Aaron Rodgers took too many sacks throughout the majority of his career. Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Ryan Tannehill. That's a whole continuum of different levels of quarterback who had some level of success. I think Howell can be there. He's also not making throws, right?
Yeah.
This isn't like the way Daniel Jones has played this year. There's all sorts of negative plays and sacks, but he's also not making a ton of good plays either. Like there's nothing good there. Sam Howell, there's some intrigue there. So I thought he played an excellent game. Had some other, De'Ami Brown in the end zone through his hands and some other just misses on big-time throws in this game. Also had the egregious interception. So maybe Sam Howell will end up being this roller coaster ride type of quarterback, which, by the way, the roller coaster, mid-tier, volatile quarterback, again, on a rookie contract, is a guy that you can kind of win with. Now, when it comes to payday, and do you want to give this guy whatever it's going to be in 3 years, $40 million, $50 million, then you have a discussion. But up until that point, it looks like Sam Howell, it's not a bad rookie contract starter.
He leads the entire NFL in big-time throws by 2.
I mean, volume-wise, yeah, he's got 50 more dropbacks than anyone else. Yeah,
but like,
I get it. No, I get it.
I mean, he's pretty high in big-time throw rate. But
Yeah,
he actually has two more big-time throws than any other quarterback in the NFL. Like, we are not talking about a guy that, yes, has this fatal flaw of sack magnetism, and occasionally makes a nice throw, right? Like occasionally makes a big play. He is fairly consistently dropping dimes all over the place. And by the way, that's not even factoring in the runs that he has, which are pretty significant. Like, we don't track it this way, but I wonder what his sort of big time run rate is, where he's making like not just a positive play, not just a small scramble here or there that's doing something, but like a crazy pinballing play where he gets out of chaos and like a really impactful scramble. I mean,
yesterday's 24-yarder on 3rd and 23.
Yeah, like his high-end play has been extremely good, and I don't think his baseline is terrible. It's just he's taken, 15 more sacks than any other quarterback in the NFL. Now, part of that is because Daniel Jones got hurt and stopped keeping pace with him, but still, like those two are way above anybody else, and that it's a wild dynamic of a quarterback to watch, but it's really fun.
If my Arizona Cardinals viewing is down here, our Sam Howell discussion time is, are people tracking these things?
Probably.
We may have talked about Sam Howell more than any other quarterback this year. From a Patriots perspective, they fall to 2-7. A few weeks ago, we talked about the sky falling. I guess it just continues to fall. As of now, if the draft was today, they'd be picking 5th in New England.
Mac Jones with an absolute bomb right through the hands of Jalen Reagor, who remains Jalen Reagor.
Mac Jones' 2 best throws this year, probably Devontae Parker in the Raiders game through his hands and through Jalen Reagor's hands yesterday.
Yeah.
Both incomplete. And I'm not saying Mac Jones is playing well this year. I don't think he's played great at all.
No.
But that kind of sums up New England. He also had a really good throw to DeMario Pop Douglas and got it up and away from coverage. That one fell incomplete too. And then the last throw of the game. Like Mac was having this discussion with Seth at the game last night. Mac Jones, if you put him in Kyle Shanahan's offense, would he have Brock Purdy-like success? I think it'd be close. I've said that before. It'd at least be close.
Yeah.
If not great. And you see the tight window throw Mac Jones makes in the comeback attempt. It went, that last pass on the broadcast, like, oh man, you can't make that tight window throw in this time of game. It went through Juju's hands and tipped up for an interception. So that kind of sums up New England this year. Mac Jones hasn't played well most of the year, and then when he makes good throws, they're going to fall incomplete anyway, and New England cannot do anything effective offensively other than a 64-yard run from Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah, which was so like somebody must have blown a gap or something on that. It was
he just ran straight.
So incredibly wide open as a running lane. He just had just nothing but real estate in front of him.
Which is also another good example. Sometimes it's the defense.
Yeah.
Even though you get all the offensive stats. 20-17, Washington wins. New England looking like a top 5 pick as of today.